3D printing is potentially way cooler than you might think. There's more to it than printing plastic boats as fast as humanly possible. Let's take a look at some really interesting use cases for 3D printing and see if we can find some new ones. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to start highlighting some really interesting and not well-known use cases for 3D printing. So if you know of any, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And hey, while you're down there, leave a like and get subscribed. Costs you nothing and helps the channel grow. Starting off, one that caught my attention and caught the media's attention a couple of years back, utilizing 3D printing to stop poachers for rhino horns. As a lot of you know, there's a big business around the ivory from a rhinoceros, and there's not a lot of them left, and you know, they don't breed very often, and 3D printing was supposed to be that big option. And unfortunately, two different media sites, Vox, which and USA Today, also kind of meh, but actually provide sources, so there's that, are reporting on the company behind it. Pembient, based in Seattle, had this lofty idea where they were going to basically copy the rhinoceros horn with 3D printing by utilizing material that effectively was identical. And no, we're not talking about printing, you know, dumb benchy boats. And the benchies are fine, okay, but saving animals is pretty good because a lot of these, well, end up in the trash. That's not always great. Something like this would have been amazing should it have actually come to fruition. And this is part of the problem that we see. Companies that claim these amazing things get great press. Like, Pembient got such good press that to this day, I remember the news media going crazy because, in theory, this is perfect, right? We copy the direct genetic signature of a rhinoceros horn and we flood the market, basically making it so you can't tell the difference between a real one and a fake one, which should viably stop the illegal poaching because, well, now it's no longer rare. And because you can't tell what is real and what isn't, it makes it so the demand should fall through the floor because the supply has now gone through the roof. It's your supply and demand curve. Welcome to economics. But we can see the technology has been around a little bit, and they're talking about that it was genetically and spectrographically similar to rhino horns. Unfortunately, it didn't really pan out. If it had, we would know about it. I don't know if the tech ever actually worked or not, right? Part of me is like, well, maybe the tech did work and they're just really quiet about it and we haven't noticed it yet, or it didn't work, and that's not great. We have a lot of awesome ways that 3D printing can be useful, and a lot of altruistic ideologies here, helping out rhinos, keeping them from being poached just for their horns. This is a good move, but they're of course not the first ones. We can see that back in 2012, there was a company that set out to make that synthetic horn powder, which is part of what people look for when they look for these horns. They apparently pioneered this concept of a synthetic horn and actually got their product into stores. We can see that based on a CNN report back in 2017 that the rhino horns can go up to $100,000 per kilo on the black markets in Asia, and a average horn can weigh upwards of 8 pounds. Funny that they use kilos and pounds in two different sentences, but I'm just not gonna get there. And apparently, Pembient said that 45% of buyers would actually utilize and be totally okay with lab-made horns. So not even trying to fake the fact that it is lab-grown. There were, of course, skeptics. And one of them was Lynn Johnson, who is the founder of Nature Needs More. And they spoke to the New York Times in 2019, basically saying that a fake doesn't have the social status of the real thing. Buyers don't want fakes. They're spending the money on the real thing because they want that social status. Now, I would argue that if the fake was genetically indistinguishable from the real one, would they even know the difference? And I think that's where 3D printing could have come in. It didn't. I like the idea of conservation via 3D printing. I think that there's a lot of value that it can be bringing to the market. But because there's not a lot of money behind it, because there's way more money in the illegal side of non-conservation, that I don't know if this market's going to take off. I do know, however, one of the big ones that we've actually even participated in, reefs. Coral reefs is really, really cool. In fact, here at the Florida Aquarium, where they are working on ways of basically building these artificial reefs, they are actively using 3D printed components as supplementary parts to the ceramic that has traditionally been used. And part of that is utilizing the sandstone process, a printer that I actually have and was kind of what I cut my teeth in this industry. This is great because unfortunately, as society tends to do what it does, the Great Barrier Reefs and coral reefs in general are simply dying off. 3D printing can give these corals new homes to grow, places for them to grab onto, and we can see here what appears to be a concrete 3D print, a habitat that can protect these delicate sea structures from the harsh environments around them, be it from vessels in the water, rising temperatures, whatever it may be. Any of you that have kept reef tanks in your homes know they can be really delicate, and a slight imbalance of those chemicals in the water can absolutely wipe out years and years of hard work. Well, 3D printing enables things that just don't functionally happen in nature to now be possible. And while utilizing artificial reefs to create growth for is literally nothing new. In fact, it's been going on for decades. 3D printing allows for complex structures that aren't normally possible. In fact, some of the fun ways that we do it here in Florida, we just sink ships. You know, we give it the old Florida man experience. We pump it full of freedom and send it down to Davy Jones' locker. And, well, that's where life tends to grow. Unless you're in a submarine that isn't certified to do it, generally speaking, you don't end up with a lot of boats at the bottom of oceans as often as, well, the coral regrowers may like. And then you have these problems of the divers that want to go explore these sunken ships because, well, it's interesting.
Hi, Julian. How you doing?
When you can 3D print it, you can build structures that are perfect for coral regrowth. And this is so easy to test on a small scale. Reef tanks are a thing. In fact, I technically have a reef tank. It's just a freshwater tank now. If you guys would like to see 3D printing for aquascaping or just fish keeping in general, let me know. We can do some videos now that I have acquired some waterproof cameras, some old Sonys. This one is 4K. Maybe that'll be a fun video. Love to know your thoughts in those comments below. The largest artificial reef is in the Maldives, and it relies on 3D printing to produce those molds for the concrete components. We see this often as well with creating barrier walls, where 3D printing is used to make the molds that we pour regular concrete into. And while you could make some of these molds with traditional manufacturing, it is often way faster to just 3D print it. When it comes to storing the molds, yeah, 3D printing is way easier to store than something like a steel or even sand mold with some sort of binder. And we can see with the power of math, the power of the world, or is that a molten hot magma core, that you can even create tiles on a micro level that have the structures to encourage the growth. And sure, there is nothing in this photo right here that could not be traditionally manufactured. You could traditionally manufacture that. That's not even that difficult. Why? When 3D printing is so much more efficient, and to get that level of detail on a terracotta pot or a piece of terracotta would be very complicated, and the mold would require such ridiculous amounts of draft angle, that is, the angle to allow the mold to come off so your park doesn't get stuck. Think Red Solo Cup, how they have a taper to them. That is so when the interior mold comes out, it doesn't create a vacuum. It instantly allows air in, and you can make the cups faster. That is required for injection molding, or molding of any type, which is how this would traditionally be made. With 3D printing, you don't have to deal with any of those confines, and you can just print in whatever structures that you want. Basically, it enables rapid research and development to help further an industry, which is saving coral reefs. Any of you that have gone to really nice aquariums, and I hope to one day go to the Georgia Aquarium. I'm really excited to go. Amber just recently went without me. She was up there for a girls' weekend, and it was just really amazing to see some of the stuff they have out there. But even to see here at the Florida Aquarium in Tampa, the coral that we have is just amazing. And to know that a lot of that is on the brink of pure extinction sucks. And to see 3D printing as a means to bring it back reinvigorates me in this industry, because there are people out there that are doing things not just to make money, but to do it to help the world. And this is where science gets really cool. Noah, not the biblical Noah, the hurricane hunter Noah, they have an experimental reef lab where they could actually simulate further conditions such as water warming up and be able to see the impact on a small scale and see how they can combat that with modern technologies via the use of 3D printing. That is objectively cool. Okay, that's objectively cool. Their Atlantic Oceanographic? I'm not even gonna say that. And we can see that it allows them to manipulate temperature and chemistry in real time, accurately reproducing conditions expected to occur in our coral reefs due to climate change. But they've had a bit of a challenge. Not only are these tanks relatively expensive to produce, they also require a lot of labor. 3D printing, though, has been able to fix this by literally using an open source software. They've created an open source SaaS, not software as a service, sorry, subsurface automated dual water samplers. They help sample water at different surface levels. There you go. That is just so cool, and it is programmable, and I love this about this industry. See, a lot of us recognize that 3D printing was developed for closed source, but then when those patents expired, it was shot up like gangbusters in open source. Now, with researchers utilizing open source software to produce open source components, it helps everybody. And they're utilizing SLA and SLS. So they're using resin printers, very much like you might have at your house. But remember, resin is toxic. Of course, they're going to be using biocompatible resins and resins that are certified. That is something that you get with Form Labs that you don't always get in the consumer industry. While I do know companies like Soraya Tech are working on more compatible resins, it's not engineering resin at this point yet. So I would say for those that are in industry, there's a reason you use Form Labs. For those that are in your home use, there's a reason you may not. That big one is going to be cost. But with the help of SLS with the Form Labs Fuse 1 and Nylon 12 or PA12, they're able to make really rugged components that traditionally would be a real pain in the keister to manufacture. And we can see that Nate Formel, Senior Research Associate at NOAA, said that 3D printing has allowed us to maintain the complexity of the research we wanted to carry out and do it for a fraction of the cost. And that, my friends, is the value of 3D printing. Whether you like this idea or not, it's just cool the way that people who are willing to think outside of the box can utilize 3D printing in a really, really awesome way. Another big one that you probably have heard of, but we haven't covered too much here on the channel, although we did cover it once a while back. We'll card to that, where Habitat for Humanity was actually 3D printing homes, is 3D printed homes. It is something that I have always dreamed of, is to just 3D print myself, my own 3D printing business, and objectively makes one of the coolest YouTube titles that I could come up with. 3D printer, 3D prints, 3D printing business with 3D printer. There you go. It's a really stupid title. Probably won't get a lot of clicks because it's not clickbaity enough, but you know what? I would at least enjoy it for the first 20 minutes as I watch the metrics tank, and then I would change the title to something way more sensational because that's how we are programmed to do things I'm sorry. But 3D printing homes has the potential to change the way that we look at manufacturing domiciles here in the United States and abroad. Not only are we utilizing materials like concrete, but we look at what NASA is doing. They're looking at 3D printing with regolith, Mars regolith to be exact, where instead of sending crazy large structures over to Mars to create a habitat for human life, we could send an autonomous 3D printer to just go make the damn thing ourselves. That would be amazing. And since we don't have too many issues with rovers on Mars, we can simply just send a robot out there to build the 3D printer, set it up, and build the home. Well, it's not so easy, and we've seen that at least here in the States, it's slowly starting to catch on. One of the big places for additive manufacturing for homes is in affordable housing, because you're now able to make homes for considerably less money. You need less people to do it. You need just a couple of people doing what managers like to do, sit around and watch things. I'm sorry, managers, you know who you are. The call out's needed from time to time, all right? But not only can you make really cool looking homes, and you can of course smooth that structure, but me personally, I would leave it that way. I think it is super, super cool to see those layer lines. And I could do an entire Print Fix Friday about their issues with extrusion here, but when you realize it's freaking concrete and upwards of a 6-inch nozzle width as you're extruding, that kind of stuff is absolutely nuts. And in this particular one, they are using Cobod 3D printers. And there are a few companies out there that do it. Icon being one of them in Texas, Cobod being probably the largest concrete 3D printer, and there are of course a few others out there. On my recent trip to Austin, Texas, I did go over to Icon. Unfortunately, they were not available to have us tour, and they also never returned any of my emails. So next time I go to Texas, Icon, we need to do a video. It'd be really cool to come out and see you guys making homes immediately. Now, there is some problems with it, and as a Florida man myself, we have some issues here. One of the big ones being Dade County wind ratings. For those that don't know, Florida is kind of a magnet for hurricanes and crazy people, but we're only worrying about the hurricanes right now. And that means that we have a standard for what a home must be able to withstand. There's no standard for concrete 3D printing at this moment. And a lot of builders aren't certified general contractors as well, so they can't always certify those homes themselves. But a friend of mine, Kendra Light, with her company Gulf Coast Additive Manufacturing and Design, they are cracking the code. Because not only are they builders, they are also the people to certify the homes. So they actually have the first certified 3D printed home in Florida. It's up in the Panhandle. Let me know if you guys want me to go take a look at it. I'd like to go see it personally. It's pretty awesome. They use an amazing technology to do this. Traditionally though, here in Florida, they are agricultural buildings through companies like Printed Farms. 3D printing concrete enables fast building of homes. No longer will communities take forever to build, and theoretically, because they require less manpower to build them, and they can be made any way that somebody wants, you get more opportunities, and you should be getting it for a lot less money. The only downsides are you don't really get corners, because of course these machines have to go around the corner, so you're not going to get a sharp corner. And, well, you can't really hang a picture without using a concrete drill bit and a hammer drill, unless you do decide to put up studs and drywall. The nice thing is, should Florida man ever decide to go crazy, the homes are solid concrete. Even the interior walls are solid concrete. It's a freaking bunker. I think that's pretty cool. 3D printing concrete to me is one of the technologies that I am keeping my eye on. And in fact, we are actively working on some intellectual property in that industry, because I believe that there is a lot of value in this industry that is still yet to be tapped. I hope to one day say that I bought a 3D printed home and I'm going to live in it, because I'm sorry, some of these photos, although these are renders, I'm fairly certain, have the opportunity to be amazing and push boundaries of design for what we really never looked at previously that can now be actually possible. I would love to know what you guys would like us to take a look at here on the channel in terms of bleeding edge technology where 3D printing is being used. Let me know in those comments down below, and we'll make sure to maybe turn this into a little mini series where we look at a couple of new technologies once a month or so. And if you like this kind of thing, leave a like, of course, get subscribed, and if you do want to support us financially, you could do so via the links in that description down below. That's all I have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones, and as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. No, it's not just about making these dinky plastic boats that don't really matter at the end of the day. We're going to be talking all about some awesome uses for 3D printing beyond, printing... Oh, I need to get the Benchy to throw it again. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our channel supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Right below me will be our recent podcast with Nero, where we really just kind of hung out for 3 hours, and we had a lot of fun talking about all things crazy in the industry. And right next to that will be a video, the algorithm thinks that you should click. I think you should click them both, but not before leaving a comment down below, which is where I will see you, and in the next one. Take care.